Merry Christmas! Welcome to this Absolut Christmas cocktail-inspired masterclass. I'm Harriet. I'm here today with our brand ambassador for Absolut. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Simon. I've worked with Absolut Vodka for over 2 years now. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and we're going to create some delicious cocktails today.
3 drinks on the cards today.
First one is going to be an Elderflower Collins, so a really long, refreshing cocktail. Next up, we've got the Espresso Martini as well.
My favourite.
And then we have the Passion Fruit Martini to finish things off.
For those of you at home, post as many pictures as possible and tag Absolut UK. Now, what equipment do we need for today's class?
So I'll walk you through what I've got here. So I've actually got a Boston tin and shaker. I'm going to be using this a little bit later. You can get this in most supermarkets now, which is really convenient. I've also got a chopping board and a knife. I've got a really long, fancy bar spoon. If you don't have a bar spoon at home, a teaspoon will work really well. I have a jigger here as well. And then, of course, we need the glassware. So for the first cocktail, we're going to need a nice highball glass. And then one of my favourite sayings, Harriet, is actually ice is nice. So make sure you have a lot of cubed ice ready to go for these cocktails.
There's nothing worse than a warm cocktail. I
Exactly.
can definitely vouch for that. What can people at home use if they don't have a jigger or a shaker?
That's a really good question. Let's say you don't have a shaker at home, everybody. Then what you could use instead is maybe a mason jar. Would work really well, or a jam jar could work really nicely. You're also going to need something to strain this the liquid out of as well. So I've got a Hawthorne strainer. Perhaps a sieve would work really nicely, or a large spoon. We can make that work as well. I think probably what most people won't have at home is a jigger. So I'm lucky enough to have this. This is 25 millilitres. On this side we have 50 millilitres. So if you don't have this at home, what I would suggest you do is find a measuring jug that can measure up to 50 millilitres, or perhaps using a shot glass as well. So a single or double shot glass would work as an alternative.
For those people who aren't into cocktails, how many millilitres does a standard shot glass hold?
So if you look at the smaller ones, hopefully you can figure this out. You'd be looking between 25 millilitres. The larger side is normally 50 millilitres, so a single and a double.
Brilliant. This bottle is a very unique shape.
It is, certainly is, yeah. It actually comes from Sweden itself. That's where Absolut's founded from, and where it comes from, where it's created. But Sweden actually started producing and consuming vodka back in sort of the 15th century. It wasn't originally called vodka, it was called brandvin, which translates to burnt wine.
Interesting.
But the bottle itself is based off this old apothecary sort of style and this all medicinal style of bottles that you would receive vodka in back in sort of the early 15th century in Sweden. So that's where the bottle comes from.
And I notice a gentleman on the front here.
This gentleman.
Could you tell me if that's the founder?
It is the founder, yeah. So if you have a bottle at home, do have a look. It is on every bottle. This is Lars Olsen Smith. He is got a nickname. He actually has a nickname. It is the king of vodka, mainly because he actually controlled a third of the vodka that was consumed in Sweden, and this was all before he could shave as well. So at a really young age.
A very important guy then.
It is, yeah, he is. This is why he's on every single bottle. He perfected the method, he perfected the recipe, and we still use it today. And that was back in 1879, which is why you'll see this written on every single bottle as well.
Okay. And what is your favourite thing about the bottle?
But me personally, that's a really good question. I'd actually draw your attention and the viewers at home to the one source philosophy that we speak about on every single bottle as well. And this is very personal for me, and this is why it's my favourite product to talk about. And that's because it's this one source philosophy. So it comes from a tiny little village. It's called Aarhus, so located in Sweden. Yeah, Aarhus. So if you struggle to remember that, just say a house and put a Swedish accent on it. It's super easy. This one source philosophy, it means that all the water we use to produce Absolut, all the winter wheat that grows around the village, it all comes from this one location. And that means that wherever you are in the world, if you're in Scotland, if you're here in London where I am, if you're in Australia or Asia, you're guaranteed the same quality spirit wherever you are in the world. And that's because it all comes from this one location, this one source.
Wow.
That's definitely my favourite fun fact about Absolut Vodka.
Brilliant. I'm getting thirsty, let's make a drink.
I agree, yeah. Definitely use a drink right now.
What have we got first up?
So the first cocktail we're going to make is the Elderflower Collins. So we'll do this step by step. For the viewers at home, do drop your questions into the chat as we've mentioned. But let's do this step by step, so don't rush ahead, and we'll do this together. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Amazing. Let's get ready to start. So the first thing we're going to need is our smaller section of our Boston tin. So I've got a Boston glass here as well. We're going to pour every liquid into this container.
Why do we use the smaller side of the glass?
It's going to make
a reason for that?
Yeah, it's going to make it really easier for us when we start to shake it, and you'll see this a little bit later on as well. But let's get started. So first thing we're going to use is 50 millilitres of Absolut. So now I'm going to pour this straight to the top, mainly because, as you mentioned, we're thirsty, we need a cocktail now. So 50 millilitres, it's going to go straight in there. Put that back down. That's our Absolut.
What's up next?
Next, we are going to need some lemon juice. So I've got a whole lemon here. I'm going to give this a little roll, and that's just going to release some of the juices, which will make it nice and easy to release from the lemon. So we're just going to roll this around, chop it directly in half.
And I guess for people at home as well, they can use pre-squeezed lemon juice. It's easy to find in the baking sections of most of the supermarkets.
Yeah, just be careful what you're using, how much you use it. That'll have a lot more stronger citrus flavour coming through, so you might not need as much. So you might have to play around with the recipe a little bit, but it should work. Approximately, give or take, in half a lemon, we'll find 25 millilitres. So I'm just going to squeeze this directly into our glass. So squeeze the whole lemon juice, as much as you can get out of the half, into the Boston glass. And that should be about 25 millilitres, just give or take. Amazing, we'll put that down to the side. Now we have some elderflower cordial going in here as well. So what I've got, I've pre-measured this, but this is 25 millilitres of elderflower cordial. That's going to go in. And then last but not least, we need a little bit of sweetness just to come through to balance out the lemon juice that's in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of homemade sugar syrup.
And for people at home, how would they make sugar syrup if they haven't got any in the cupboard?
It's a good question. So you can make this at home. What I would suggest you do is get some white caster sugar and just equal parts caster sugar and then boiling water. Mix that together in a container, stir it until it's completely clear, and then just put on the side to chill. And it should last a few days. If you keep it in the fridge, it could last up to a week as well. So you can keep using it.
Brilliant.
Here's some we've already prepared. Yeah, of course. Yeah, more cocktails, of course. Here's some we've prepared already. I'm just going to use 5 millilitres. It's only a touch. It's quite hard to measure 5 millilitres, so I'm going to use the edge of my bar spoon. Approximately, that is 5 millilitres. You could swap this out, though, for a teaspoon if that's what you've got in your kitchen at home. But I'm just going to measure this out, so 5 millilitres going in, not much, just the tip. It's perfect. Brilliant. And that is all our ingredients. Brilliant. So now we need to move on to probably the most important part. We're going to have to shake the cocktail. First thing I would say is get your tin. We want to go about 2/3 of the way with cubed ice. So I've got some cubed ice here.
So when we're at home, we would recommend having at least 1 to 2 bags of ice in your freezer if possible, if you've got space. But if not, some cube trays would be excellent. Amazing.
Yeah, you can also use empty containers if you want to create ice as well. So perhaps like old yogurt pots would work really well. Maybe even like old food containers from takeaways. There are ways of producing more ice. Whatever you've got at home, we can make this work. I also suggest if you want to make the best ice at home, I'd actually boil the ice first as well. It makes it nice and cleaner and a bit clearer when it comes out.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, we're full of facts today, right? We're full of facts. Hopefully I can give you a few more later.
Much more Instagram if your ice cubes are clear.
Much better for the gram. We live for the gram now.
I definitely do.
Where were we? We've got the ice. Ice is nice. 2/3 of the way. Hopefully you can see that. What we're going to do is going to pour this in at an angle. Put this down at an angle. Give it one tap on the top. And what that means is it's sealed. And we should be able to lift this from the top part of our shaker. So do be careful, especially if you're doing this at home. Do check that it's sealed properly before we try that. And then most importantly, we definitely don't, not when we're making a delicious cocktail. But most importantly, let's give this a good shake. So I don't want to see any of this. This just means that we don't really care. We're not trying to make a good cocktail. We need to give it a good shake, guys.
A good welly.
A good welly, yeah, I like that. A good welly. So hopefully you viewers at home are ready to give this a good welly. We'll give this a shake in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Perfect. And you know it's ready when it starts to get too cold to hold. It's probably a good sign that it's chilled enough. And you see this where it starts to smile, Harriet? Just here. This is where we need to hit it just to release the 2 tins. So we're going to get the strongest part of our hand here. Give it a little whack on the side. That should pop undone quite nicely.
Much easier than my attempts at home.
There we go. I'm trying to give you all the tips now, guys. Anything shaken, I do suggest fine straining. So I have got a Hawthorne strainer. I'm just going to pop this on the top. And I've got a fine strainer as well. If you don't have one of these at home, a sieve would work just as well. And we're going to fine strain this in.
And the fine strainer is just removing any of the lemon seeds or any of the chipped bits of ice?
Yeah, that's perfect. We don't want any of that when we're enjoying this cocktail.
Yeah.
That's great. So we've got a liquid. We're going to add some cubed ice. Remember what I said.
Brilliant.
Ice is nice, everybody. Perfect.
And
then
how are we finishing it off?
we're going to finish this off with 2 elements. We're going to add a touch of soda water. This is just going to add a little bit of carbonation and make it sort of light. And we're going to end up, it's going to bring out the flavours that are in the elderflower, in the lemon juice, and especially in the Absolut. So I've got some soda water here. I'm just going to top this up. And I always say to any bartender or anybody making a drink is to remember this wash line, which is about a finger's width from the liquid to the top of the glass. Just means that if we're dancing around, we're having a good time, we're enjoying ourselves, I'm not going to spill any all over my nice carpet at home. So always remember your wash line, it's a good tip. You should have a remaining half a lemon. We're just going to chop this into a nice little wheel. So I've got a nice little lemon wheel here, as you can see, and that's just going to be my garnish. So I'll pop that on the side there. And that's our first cocktail. That is the Elderflower Collins. I'll let you have a little taste.
Thank you.
See what you think about that.
Oh, it smells so refreshing.
Yeah?
So
Do you smell the lemon?
Yeah, definitely.
Great sign, should do. It's great
Cheers.
reason. I'm in suspense. How is it?
Yeah, perfect.
Amazing.
You're right, the soda definitely brings out the elements.
Yeah, you
The
should
fruit
be able
elements
to get in
in
the elderflower in there as well.
Yeah.
And the lemon should hit you on the nose, so you get the sort of citrus flavour on the nose there.
So for those of you at home, you'll see a recipe pop up on your screen. Just to recap the Elderflower Collins, it's 50 millilitres of Absolut Vodka, 25 millilitres of Elderflower cordial, 25 millilitres of lemon juice, 5 millilitres of sugar syrup, topped up with soda water. Now, next up, my favourite, Espresso Martini.
I'm glad it's your favourite. You can definitely taste this one then once we've prepared it. I am just going to sort of move some of this stuff out the way and bring it onto the board so we can get ready for our next cocktail.
So I heard Dick Bradsell,
Yes.
key influencer in the Espresso Martini story. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you bring him up because he is a bit of a sort of cocktail legend, if you like. There's not many cocktail bars which doesn't have a cocktail of his on the menu. But he did create the Espresso Martini, but this is back sort of like the early 1980s. Now, when he created the cocktail, the story goes that a beautiful model walked into the Soho Brasserie here in London and said, I need a cocktail that's going to wake me up. And I don't think I can say the rest of this story.
I don't think you can.
Maybe you viewers at home should just Google the rest of the story, but it's a great story. But yes, Dick Bradsell did create the Espresso Martini.
So we have him to thank for this.
We certainly do. It's an incredible cocktail. I can't wait to make it for us. Let me just make sure.
And what does it include?
So today we're going to be using Absolut Vodka again, which we've already spoken about. We have a lovely Mexican coffee liqueur as well, which we'll be using here. And then we've got some strong coffee. So you should have noticed that on your shopping list, you should have purchased some coffee ready for this cocktail. And I suggest when you're preparing this at home that you almost treat it as if you're preparing an espresso, rather than like a long Americano or anything like that. Go for a really short, strong coffee, and that will work really nicely.
Is there a reason for that?
We really don't want to, we want to make sure the coffee comes through, and we want it to be strong coffee so that we get this really nice crema on the top of our Espresso Martini. Sometimes it's the best part. The frothiness, yeah, that's the best part about any Espresso Martini, so we need to make sure that we've got nice, strong coffee ready to go.
Brilliant. And for people at home, if they're using granule coffee, what should they do?
Exact same, just treat it like you're going to produce an espresso, keep it
really
short,
strong.
keep it strong, and it should work really fine. You may have to play around with it a few times, but by the third Espresso Martini, you'll have it down, I promise.
You won't care anymore.
I'm sure you will, because I'm sure the viewers will be drinking responsibly.
Let's get started.
Perfect, that sounds good. So we're going to treat this the exact same way.
Yeah.
We're going to
So
put
we're shaking again.
all shaken, yeah. Probably a good chance to point out what you can use instead.
Kilner jar, Boston glasses, jam jars, also a protein shaker. Those of you who are gym
great
bunnies
idea,
might have
yeah.
a protein shaker lying around.
Great, yeah, it's a good alternative. I didn't think about the protein shaker. Before we get started, this cocktail is very easy. We've made the recipe nice and simple. But once again, let's do it step by step. Let's do it together. So we're going to start with 25 millilitres, which is on this side. Straight into my Boston glass.
And are we shaking this one with ice as well?
Oh yeah, we'll be shaking this one with some
want to jump the
cubed
gun.
ice. Yeah, so ice is nice. We'll definitely be using some ice in this one. We're going to use the Kahlua Have you had this before? It is a Mexican coffee liqueur. It's probably one of the most popular around the world, heavily used in espresso martinis and like liqueur coffees. It works really well. Lots of cocktails it can be used in. My personal favourite is it's got this really nice chocolate note that comes through on the espresso martini. So this should
almost like
really,
a dessert drink.
Exactly. I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. This is going to work really nicely, especially this time of year as well during the Christmas period. But we're going to go in with 25 millilitres once again, so equal parts. Nice and easy. And then next, we're going to add some coffee, as I mentioned. I've already measured this, so this is 25 millilitres. I'm just going to pour this straight in. Super easy, get that out of the way.
Question before you start shaking. What is the best way to get the maximum frothiness?
It's all in the shake.
Is it?
It's all in the shake. We just need to give
So
it a real
minimal
good shake.
shaking.
No minimal shaking, none of this. This is like I'm in the back of a movie set just trying to look busy. We really need to give it a good shake, especially if you want that crema on the top of the espresso martini. So ice is nice. We're going to go 2/3 of the way. Nice. Hopefully your viewers home can see this. This is 2/3 of the way. And you can see that as well, Harriet?
Yep.
Nice. Going to treat it the exact same way. Pour it in at an angle. Good whack on the top. Make sure it's sealed. And it's all in the shake. One hand on each side will work really well, just in case it comes loose. But let's do it. Are you ready?
How many seconds of shaking?
How many seconds? Depends on your shake. Just keep a hold of the tin, because we're all going to shake differently. I might shake it a little bit harder than yourself, or vice versa. So when it's too cold to hold, it's probably a good sign.
Is that your way of saying you're stronger than me?
I'm not going to say that. 100%. 100% not going to say that. You could probably beat me up. Let's give this a good shake. Yeah, exactly. I'm a soft Yorkshire boy. Let's give this a shake, guys. So hopefully you guys are ready. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. Perfect. So it's too cold to hold now. I know it's chilled. Once again, just where it starts to smile, that's just where we need to give it a good hit. Strongest part of our hand, and it should pop undone.
Any recommendations for people if their tins are stuck together?
Tins are stuck together. Just be patient. Keep whacking it. Don't be too hard.
Just keep kind of moving.
Whatever you do, I remember the first bar I actually worked in. The bar manager said just hit it on the side of the bar. I did that, smashed the whole thing. It was a disaster. So maybe don't get that aggressive with it. Make sure you've got another glass as well. So I've got another coupe here now, or a martini glass. Anything you've got at home will work. It's still going to taste just as delicious. I've got a fine strainer again. I'm just going to strain this in.
People can use a wee sieve for at home if need be.
Correct, yeah, could use a sieve as well.
Brilliant.
And let's give it a little tap on the side, just to ease out some of the liquid.
Lovely.
Beautiful. And then the garnish?
Coffee beans.
Coffee beans,
so
yeah.
You said that we're putting 3 coffee beans on here.
That
is
is
there a reason why
correct.
there's 3? And not just one, or some chocolate?
It's a good question. You could use chocolate, it'll work really well. It comes from an old Italian tradition where they would put 1 coffee bean on a sambuca and light that on fire. But this has its own meaning. It actually stands for health, wealth and happiness. So very nice saying there. But you did dibs this one. This is your favourite. I can see your eyes are lighting up. I'll let you have a taste of our espresso martini.
Cheers. Delicious.
Amazing.
Just a wee recap of the recipe. 25 millilitres of Absolut Vodka, 25 millilitres of Kahlua, and 25 millilitres of espresso coffee. And 3 coffee beans for a garnish. But if you don't have this, feel free to shave some chocolate on top as a wee twist. Next up, we've got the passion fruit martini.
Amazing, yeah. I think I'm excited for this one. I always like to think we save the best till last.
Absolutely.
When it comes to these cocktails. Let me just pull some equipment over so we're ready for the next one. We are actually going to swap this out for Absolut Vanilla. Have you had this one before?
No, I haven't, but I'm assuming it's vanilla flavoured.
You've guessed correctly, yeah. So it is vanilla flavoured. But the best thing about our flavour portfolio with Absolut is that it's all very natural ingredients, stands by our one source philosophy. It all comes from our hus in Sweden. And of course, it's all natural and completely unsweetened as well. So, and this is what Absolut were famous for when they actually created the first flavour back in sort of the 1980s. Do you want to have a guess what flavour that was?
Am I right in thinking it was citron?
No, you're close. Any other guesses? I'll give you a hint.
Right?
I'll give you a hint, okay? No, you're wrong again. I'll give you a hint. This cocktail that it was used for was very popular in the morning. Any ideas? No? It's the Bloody Mary. So the cocktail, the flavour they actually created was Absolute Pepper, which was the first unsweetened, completely natural flavour that Absolute produced.
So what do we need for this?
So we have got some Absolute Vanilla. As I mentioned, we're going to be using this. We've got some Prosecco as well, some fresh passion fruit. And then in here I've got some pineapple juice. So I'm going to pop that down. Don't need this anymore. And then the
if
same
people at
equipment.
home don't have fresh passion fruit, is passion fruit juice okay as a
Passion fruit
substitute?
juice, yeah, there are some sort of like still passion fruit juices you can use which work really well as an alternative. So you're more than welcome to use that. But we really want to use the passion fruit in here. So fresh is always going to make a nicer cocktail. So I've got some fresh pineapple juice, fresh passion fruits to use. And of course, I don't know if you're aware of this, but passion fruit is a really popular flavour here in the UK at the moment as well. It's very tropical and fruity, right?
And am I right in thinking a wee bit of Prosecco on the side?
Wee bit of Prosecco, yes, you are correct. Yeah,
and
a little bit of
what is that
Prosecco.
for? Is that like a palate cleanser? Is that like to pour in the drink? Because I see people doing it differently every single place I go to.
I think it's a good question. You know what? For you guys at home, do what you want with it. If you want to shot it, if you want to pour it in your cocktail. Responsibly, of course. Do what you want. I mean, my theory, my idea is, I mean, this cocktail was created back in sort of 1999. It's in a cocktail bar called Lab. And
so quite new in terms of cocktails.
Quite new,
1999.
and to think it's one of the most popular cocktails in the UK today is incredible. So it's done really well. But if I were you, it's quite a sweet cocktail at times, depending on how it's been made with what ingredients. So if it ever gets a little bit sickly or a little bit too sweet, go to your Prosecco, have a little sip, run it around the mouth, use it as a palate cleanser, as you mentioned, and that will make, and then you can go back to your passion fruit martini and carry on enjoying it. Works really well.
So palate cleanser is best.
Palate cleanser works really
But
nicely.
really it is up to you.
Completely. Do what you want.
Let's get going.
Great. So we are going to stick to the same method. We're going to do this step by step. Everything's going to go into our Boston glass. So I've got Absolute Vanilla. We're going to pour 50 millilitres in again.
For those of you at home, give us a wee message into the chat box. Tell us how you drink it. Do you shot the Prosecco? Do you pour it in the drink? Do you have it as a palate cleanser? We'd love to know. Everyone can see the chat function, so we can share all our knowledge around. How do you drink it?
I shot it, guys. No, I don't. I do use it as a palate cleanser, but it's definitely worthwhile. If you're ever having like one, if maybe you go to like a cocktail bar and they're doing like buy one get one free, I always keep the Prosecco because it's just going to work really nicely in between the two drinks. Just sort of cleanse your palate, and you can carry on drinking this delicious passion fruit martini.
Brilliant.
Works really well.
Let's go. I see we're using the shaker again.
So we're using the shaker again. I'm going to pour everything into the smaller section of our tin, or Boston glass if you like. 50 millilitres has gone in here. We're then going to be using some pineapple juice. So I've got 20 millilitres we're going for. Now I've got a 25 millilitre jigger or measure. So we're going to go just from the top. That's where we want it to sort of leave the liquid. So 20 millilitres. Perfect. Pop that down. Next as well, we would have noticed on your shopping list we did need some whole passion fruits. So what we're going to do here is we're going to chop this directly in half. As you can see, what we want to do is we want to get the flesh out into our Boston glass. I'm going to use this bar spoon here. A teaspoon will work, or a tablespoon would work really well. Just get the flesh out of the passion fruit into our glass.
I can smell the passion fruit flavour from here. It smells
Great,
amazing.
that's what we want. We want you to be able to smell it already and tease you. Here we go. One more. So we want the whole pulp from one of the whole passion fruits, the whole flesh. Get that in.
Gosh, that's a lot of passion fruit.
Well, fresh.
Definitely going to taste the passion fruit.
You're going to taste it, yeah? Like I said, it's one of the most popular flavours here in the UK at the moment.
Is it #1 cocktail?
It is currently, definitely, yeah. So it is the most popular cocktail. I know, right? What's your personal favourite?
Espresso Martini.
Okay, maybe we can convert you into the passion fruit martini after this. We'll see. Once we've got the whole passion fruit, our pineapple juice, Absolute Vanilla gone in there as well, we are going to shake it. So what we're going to suggest to do is 2/3 of the way with cubed ice once again.
And what's the significance behind the 2/3? Just so that it's enough ice to cool the drink?
It's what we want to do is we want to basically dilute it. We want to dilute it too fast. It's more about the ratio between the dilution and how fast we're going to cool down this cocktail. And more ice is the better. Otherwise, it will dilute too quickly. We end up with a really watered down cocktail. Now, I've got my cubed ice in there quickly. Probably just a good chance for me to mention that we do actually need to add some sweetness into this cocktail. So I did forget to mention, I'm rushing ahead. But we just need some sugar syrup.
You're sweet enough. Just
here. Thank you, Harriet. You're too kind. We're not going to use 5 millilitres here. We're going to use 15 millilitres, which is approximately halfway on a measure, or a little bit more than halfway if you're using a single shot glass at home. Or you could always measure 3 of your teaspoons.
And what would you recommend for people who prefer maybe a less sweet drink, just to alter the ratios a wee bit?
I mean, this is your recipe. You're making this at home, right? You can play around with it. If it's too sweet for you, then drop down the sugar a little bit.
Or maybe make their sugar syrup a wee bit less concentrated? You
could, yes. Yeah. You could. We've used a 1-to-1 ratio between sugar and water for this recipe. You could use a 2-to-1 if that's your preference, if you want it to be a little bit less sweeter. But you want to keep the same volume so it fills your cocktail glass, which I'm sure everybody wants, right? A nice full cocktail. So, where were we? We have got 2/3 of the way, cubed ice, if anybody can see that. So 2/3 of the way. Going to treat this the exact same. I'm going to pour this in at an angle, give it a good whack on the top. We know it's sealed when I can lift it. And then just like the Espresso Martini, we want a nice crema, a nice little foam on the top of our coupe, on the top of our martini glass.
Yes.
So we need to give it a good shake, don't we? Are we ready?
Welly.
Good welly, yeah, I like it. For you viewers at home, let's get ready. We're going to shake this in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Perfect. It's a bit too cold to hold, we know it's good. I'll remind you now, if you want to release this, we need to hit this just where it starts to smile. Get the strongest part of your hand. Give it a good whack on the side. There it is. There it is. Sometimes you've just got to be patient, work with it, it will come undone.
And are we fine straining? Are we using the Hawthorne strainer?
Yeah, I think my golden rule, I think this is a good point to mention, anything shaken, I would fine strain definitely, just to get rid of, I think you mentioned it earlier, the little shards of ice, any fresh flute. Yeah, wee chips, yeah, like it. So we're going to give this another fine strain, straight into our martini glass or coupe, whatever you're working with at home. Will work fine. Any liquid struggling to come through, because we did use some fresh pulp, just give it a little tap. That should drip through. Lovely.
And garnish and finish?
Garnish. So we need to make this look pretty, mainly for everybody posting as well, and for the gram, of course. What I suggest we do, we've got a whole passion fruit here. Just chop this in half, and then we're going to float this on the top, which will work really nicely. It will fill the cocktail as well, so it's perfectly measured. And then, most importantly, we're going to need a little shot of Prosecco, just on the side here. So what we're going to do, got a lovely little bottle of Prosecco. Don't worry, we can finish this off after the live stream.
It is Christmas after all.
It is Christmas, yeah, it's the festive period. So we're just going to take this out, pour a little bit out. Why not? A little bit, it's a gift. And we'll pour this in. I'm just going to serve this on the side. And that is our passion fruit martini, everybody. We
would be grateful if you could let us know how you drink it at home, what your preference is, and send us a picture if possible. The more you use our tag at Absolut UK, everyone else can see your pictures, and it's just nice to share at this time.
And most importantly, I get to see your pictures. I want to know how well I've done at this masterclass and how good your cocktails look at home. So please do send your pictures in.
If it's not on Instagram, did it even happen?
Exactly, right? This is the life we're leading at the moment.
I think you deserve this one.
I think I do as well. You know, you got the first 2 cocktails, so I'll taste this one. So this is the passion fruit martini, everybody. I hope you enjoy it. Do join me in a virtual cheers. Cheers, everyone. Let me have a little taste. That's delicious. The recipe will be up on the screen now. Do take a look through, but I'll walk you through it one more time. We used 50 ml Absolut vanilla, 20 milliliters of pineapple juice, the flesh of 1 whole passion fruit, and 15 milliliters of our sugar syrup. And then we've shaken it, and we've garnished it with a shot of Prosecco on the side and half a passion fruit floating.
I think we can all agree that those were 3 fantastic cocktails. Let's just do a quick recap of them. So first up we had the Elderflower Collins, which
I've got here
50 millilitres of Absolut Blue vodka, 25 millilitres of Elderflower cordial, 25 millilitres of freshly squeezed lemon juice, 5 millilitres of sugar syrup, topped up with soda, garnished with a lemon wheel. Next up we had the Espresso Martini, which is 25 millilitres of Absolut Blue, 25 millilitres of Kahlua and 25 millilitres of espresso coffee, garnished with 3 coffee beans or a wee bit of chocolate, or a couple of matchmakers if you're feeling a little bit excited about Christmas. And last up, we had the passion fruit martini.
Yeah, so in this one we have 50 millilitres of Absolut vanilla. We have 20 millilitres of pineapple juice. We've got the flesh of a whole passion fruit in there as well. And just a touch of sugar syrup, so 15 millilitres of sugar syrup. Shaken, we've put a passion fruit float on the top and a little shot of Prosecco on the side.
Now, for everyone at home, is there any way they can twist up these cocktails now that they're all going to become experts in cocktail making?
Yeah, of course. I think that's a good question. I think with the Collins, the most simplest way to twist this up is think about the flavour portfolio you have in the Absolut world. So you could swap it out for Absolut vanilla, mango. We've got a new flavour which is grapefruit as well. So you can play around with the Collins with that cocktail quite easily.
What about the cordial?
The cordial,
change the cordial
you could change the cordials. Yeah, you could change the soda. You could use different flavoured sodas.
Soda,
yeah. So you could change pretty much any element, just as long as you've still got something sweet, something sour, and you've got that carbonation. It should work really well. For the espresso martini, festive. You mentioned matchmakers. Great little garnish. What a great idea. Personally, I love a little bit of salted caramel syrup in there. Would work really nicely. And then if I was going to do that, I'd maybe use a different garnish like toffee popcorn on the top, which will hit you on the nose like a dessert. So as you sip the espresso martini, you can sort of smell the toffee popcorn on the top. That works really nicely.
Lovely.
You could even use like a chocolate orange liqueur. You said grate some chocolates, giving me an idea. So use a chocolate orange liqueur for the espresso martini, and then grate some chocolate orange on the top. That would work really nice.
Nutmeg also an option?
Nutmeg would work really nice on an espresso martini. Not too much, just like a little bit, would work really good.
And last up, what about the
passion fruit martini? You can really play around with this. You know, if you don't want to use whole passion fruits or pineapple juice, you can really just look at those tropical flavours. There's a lot of different tropical juices out there that you can play around with as well. You could even mix it up with different syrups potentially.
What about a wee bit of cinnamon?
Bit of cinnamon, yeah. Go back to that sort of Christmas festive period. You could get some cinnamon syrup, which is, you can usually find this in like coffee shops now, or on online retailers. And you could use some cinnamon syrup, same ingredients, and then a little bit of cinnamon garnish would be nice. So it'd be like a cinnamon and passion fruit martini.
Lovely. So for those of you at home as well that are looking to buy the ingredients, we can find them on Amazon and other online retailers. In most of the big supermarkets, you'll find all of our portfolio. And if you've enjoyed this masterclass, we have 5 more across our spirits portfolio that you can join in with to become a cocktail connoisseur over the festive period. Should we have a little cheers?
I think that sounds like a good idea. Thank you so much for having me, Harriet. I hope you've enjoyed these drinks. And cheers to everybody at home.
Cheers.
Goodbye.